And we'll proceed. So now, back to the regular programming. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Naruttamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tattva Jayam Udirayet Nasta Prayesha Vadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamas Loke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Just a moment, I'm going to procure my reading glasses. I'll be right back. Okay, so we are reading from the 4th canto, chapter 29, verse number 49. It goes like this. Astirya Darbai Pragagrai Kartsnyena Kshiti Mandalam Stabdo Brihad Padam Mani Karma Naivashi Yat Param Tat Karma Haritusham Yat Savidyatan Materiaya. Synonyms. Astirya, having covered. Darbai, by Kushagrass. Prakagrai, with the points facing east. Kartsnyena, altogether. Kshitimandalam, the surface of the world. Stabda, proud upstart. Brihat, great. Vadhat, by killing. Mani, thinking yourself very important. Karma, activity. Na avaishi, you do not know. Yet, which. Param, supreme. Tat, that. Karma, activity. Haritosham, satisfying the Supreme Lord. Yet, which. Sa, that. Vidya, education. Tat, unto the Lord. Mati, consciousness. Yaya, by which. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. My dear king, the entire world is covered with the sharp points of kushagrass. And on the strength of this, you have become proud because you have killed various types of animals in sacrifices. Because of your foolishness, you do not know that devotional service is the only way one can please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You cannot understand this fact. Your only activities should be those that can please the Personality of Godhead. Our education should be such that we can become elevated to Krishna consciousness. Purport. In this verse, the great sage Narada Muni directly insults the king because he was engaged in performing sacrifices that entailed the killing of a great number of animals. The king was thinking that he was great for having performed so many sacrifices, but the great sage Narada directly chastises him, informing him that his animal killing only leads to his being puffed up with false prestige. Actually, anything that is done which does not lead to Krishna consciousness is a sinful activity. And any education that does not lead one to understand Krishna is false education. If Krishna consciousness is missing, one is simply engaged in false activities and false educational pursuits. The verse again. My dear king, the entire world is covered with the sharp points of kushagrass, and on the strength of this, you have become proud because you have killed various types of animals in sacrifices. Because of your foolishness, you do not know that devotional service is the only way one can please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You cannot understand this fact. Your only activities should be those that can please the Personality of Godhead. Our education should be such that we can become elevated to Krishna consciousness. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksurumiditam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripa tamaham bande shigurundina taranam paramananda madhavam Shri Chaitanyam Ishwaram Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanavyo vaishnavavyo namo namaha. So let's start with yesterday's verse. Actually, I'm gonna also abuse tomorrow's class and take some quotes from tomorrow's verse. Sorry, Yasha. In the verse yesterday, that Prabhupada speaks in a purport particularly about going back to the spiritual world, and that is foolish to try to go to other planets in the material world. So this is, I did look it up and see what the distance is, because people are pretty obsessed about colonizing Mars and going to the moon and all this silly stuff. First of all, Mars is pretty far. It's about 300 million miles. 300 million miles. That's a long trip. And if spacecraft that goes just below 25,000 miles an hour, that will take about 7 months. 7 months to go there, and they probably will have supplies for about 3 months. So it's a 7-month trip. Then you stay 3 months and then come back. And it's not exactly hospitable, as the temperature, the average temperature is minus 81 degrees Fahrenheit. Sometimes it goes up to 70 degrees above zero, but also can go to minus 220 degrees. So not a very good place. Is 50 million miles farther from the sun, so it's not a warm place to be. You can't grow anything because the sunlight and the heat don't reach that planet. Yet seems like it's a useless pursuit, as we can see. Also, they can't really enter the atmosphere. You can't breathe in Mars. There's 0.02% oxygen. There's hardly any. And the atmospheric pressure is so low that the blood, if someone is unprotected, blood will boil. So why go to other planets? And Prabhupada said that the moon is a heavenly planet, so whatever planet they went to, it wasn't the moon, it was something else, if they actually made it that far. So that's one of the things that we have to consider, that why go anywhere else? If you actually, even in America, and America is over 300, maybe 350, probably closer to 400 million people living in America, which seems like a lot of people, but the country is so large that if you actually go to Google Earth, anywhere in America, and you point in any place, you probably end up in a field or in a forest or in a desert or somewhere. Not unless you happen to hit a city, but there are not that many. The populated areas are very, very small. It's maybe 1/50th of the land that is covered. So they figure out that there is no overpopulation because there's so many places to live, except that nobody wants to live in the country like we do. Well, nowadays, with the amount of crime and mishap and shootings and politicians and traffic and pollution and etc. Maybe people are reconsidering that fact, but it's not a. There's so many places where one can live. So now let's go back to today's verse. Prabhupada speaks about education. So let's find a definition for education that is suitable from the Oxford languages. Maybe they give different definitions. A process of receiving or giving systematic instruction, especially at a school or university. Okay, I'm gonna accept that. The theory and practice of teaching. A body of knowledge acquired while being educated. Okay, these are all standard. Information about or training in a particular field or subject. And ultimately, there is another definition, an enlightening experience. And this is what Prabhupada is talking about, that if it isn't enlightening, is a waste of time. So what is enlightening? And this word comes from educare, Latin, educatio, to basically to learn. Yeah, it's from the 16th century, from Latin language. Here, Narada Muni finally is not going allegoric anymore. He took his gloves off and is berating the king for feeling proud about killing animals, even if it's in sacrifice, because there is karma. There is karma associated with it. Narada Muni very kindly show Mrigari the hunter his future on a little TV in the sky display, and Mrigari became a great devotee. He was totally afraid because he had no idea. He was just following a tradition. Just like here, people hunt. They don't think twice about it. They're hunters, as if it was a fair game. One follows with a high-powered rifle and camouflage and sprays to eliminate the odor, because humans do have an odor and animals can perceive it. They can smell it at a distance, and they shoot innocent animals. They may chew on your leaves, and if you protect the plants, they won't have access to it. And so there is karma. There is serious karma. So let's see what happens when one kills animals, even if it's in sacrifice. This is from the Ramayana. In the Ayodhya Kanta of the Ramayana, King Dasa explains this story to Kausalya. King Dasa was hunting at the banks of the Sarai River, thinking there was an elephant in front of him. He shot an arrow and inadvertently killed a young sage who was taking care of his aged parents who were actually blind. He took that form to move things around. Elephants are very strong. So the parents came and did all the final rites for the deceased son, and they cursed Dasa that he will too die after the separation of his son. That's why when Lord Ramachandra left, Dasa didn't live much longer. He died of separation because of a curse. The parents died with the grief of the loss of their only son. And the Manusmriti says, those who permit slaying of animals, those who bring animals for slaughter, those who slaughter, those who sell meat, those who purchase meat, those who prepare a dish out of it, those who serve the meat, and those are considered murderers. Not killers, murderers. In the Mahabharata, in the Anuparva, it says, he who desires to augment his own flesh by eating the flesh of other creatures, lives in misery in whatever species he may take his next birth. Yikes. In the Adharvan Veda says, O teeth, you eat rice, you eat barley, you eat sesame. These cereals are specifically meant for you. Do not kill those who are capable of being fathers and mothers. The Yajurveda says, O human, the animals are agnya, not to be killed. Protect the animals. So there are quotes from different scriptures, not exactly recommending this animal killing, even if it's done in the form of sacrifice. It doesn't really matter. So what is the, according to this verse, there's a couple of words here in this verse that we read today. It says, where is it? 49. Tat karma haritosham yat. So there is a verse in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, it's well known. Tapumbir dvijashresta varnashama vibhagasa sanustita asya dharmasya samsidir haritoshanam, the same word, haritoshanam, pleasing the Lord. And says, O best among the twice born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation according to caste divisions and orders of life is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is actually education. Education means one learns according to one's propensities, according to one's capacity to please the Supreme Person. I can read the purport from the famous verse from Bhagavatam 1:2-13. It's quite short. Human society all over the world is divided into 4 castes and 4 orders of life. The 4 castes are the intelligent caste, the martial caste, the productive caste, and the laborer caste. These castes are classified in terms of one's work and qualification and not by birth. This Lord Chaitanya spoke about that. Kiva Bipra, Kiva Nyasa Sudra Kenenoi, Ye Krishna Tattva Veda, Say Guru Hoy. So it doesn't matter in what position you are, if you know Krishna, if you know how to please Krishna, then you're properly situated and educated. This, then again, there are 4 orders of life, namely the student life, the household life, the retired, and the devotional life. In the best interest of human society, there must be such divisions of life. Otherwise, no social institution can grow in a healthy state. And in each and every one of the above-mentioned divisions of life, the aim must be to please the supreme authority of the personality of Godhead. This institutional function of human society is known as a system of Varnashram Dharma, which is quite natural for the civilized life. The Varnashram institution is constructed to enable one to realize the absolute truth. It is not for artificial domination of one division over another. When the aim of life, i.e., realization of the absolute truth, is missed by too much attachment for Indriya Priti or sense gratification, as already discussed, the institution of a Varnashram is utilized by selfish men to pose an artificial predominance over the weaker section. In the Kali Yuga, or in this age of quarrel, this artificial predominance is already current, but the saner section of the people know it well that the division of castes and orders of life are meant for smooth social intercourse and high-thinking self-realization, and not for any other purpose. Here in the statement of Bhagavatam is that the highest aim of life, or the highest perfection of the institution of the Varnashram Dharma, is to cooperate jointly for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. So this is the goal is not to be a Brahman, to be a perfect Brahman or a perfect anything. The goal is to satisfy the Supreme Lord from wherever one is situated. And one has to find one's nature and duty. There's a duty associated with one's nature. For example, I was speaking to some devotees in Kentucky. Yeah, we have devotees everywhere, and telling them about duty, how duty one has to figure out what one's duty in life. Like, for example, Arjuna heard about duty from Krishna. That was the point of the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna wanted to be a nice guy, and that didn't play out very well because it was time for war, time to get rid of the bad guys. It's like having quarrel, having a fight, or violence, or a rapist, or something really, really odd and awful going on, and there is a policeman in plain clothes and off a clock. You can't just say, I'm off a clock, I'm not working right now. It is his duty to intervene if there is conflict. And the same way, it's not about the position that you occupy from 9 to 5. It's about one's nature and the duty associated with such a nature. So in the verse that comes tomorrow, there are several quotes from the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Chaitanya Bhagavat was not translated by Prabhupada, but is definitely a bona fide scripture. So if you have a chance to read it, it's a fabulous work. Okay, so there are definitions from the Chaitanya Bhagavat on how what's the best education, because that's what the topic is today. Tahare se Bali Vidya Mantra Atyayana Krishna Pade Padme Ye Karaya Stiramana. One who has fixed his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna is to be understood as having the best education and as having studied all the Vedas. There are also other appropriate quotes in Chaitanya Bhagavat, such as Se Vidyara Palaja Niha Nishchaya Krishna Pada Padme Yadichita Vritti Raya. The perfect result of an education is the fixing of one's mind at the lotus feet of Krishna. And this is not easy to do. Take it from me. Digvijaya Kariba Vidyara Kadiye Nahe, Ishwari Baljile, Se Vidya Satya Kahe. Conquering the world by means of material education is not desirable. If one engages himself in devotional service, his education is perfect. We saw in the pastimes of Nimai of Nadia, how he took education very seriously, and also, but then gave it up because real education meant to Haritoshanam, to satisfy Hari. Same thing with the songs by many of his songs, especially from Sharanagati by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, like Bulia Tomare, Samsari Ashya, Tridavyat, Penana, Tridavyata, like how he was suffering quite a bit in the womb of his mom, because birth, it may be romanticized, but it's actually a time of pain. It's like being kidnapped in a small Fiat Italian car, in the trunk of a Fiat for 10 months and not being able to move around. It's just awful. Even if you go on economy on an airplane, you're just fried after a couple hours. You just want to stretch your legs. There's no room. So in this situation, he was being attacked by worms, by bugs inside the womb. Whatever the mom ate, if they eat hot food, affects the child. Such sensitive skin still forming. He started to pray, and he prayed to get out. And he said, I will worship you, my Lord. I'm sorry, I forgot you. And eventually, at a certain point, Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes that the Lord appeared and he made that promise. But with the impact of birth, he forgot. I read many years ago the biography of Salvador Dali, the painter. Actually, he wrote it and entitled it appropriately, autobiography of a genius. Yeah, that's the person he was. And there was a description. He said that when one is in bed trying to fall asleep and feels like he's falling, like that feeling that we all have once in a while, that is when as a remembrance of one is taking birth, coming out of a mother's womb, and feels like you're just falling into the abyss. I don't know if it's true. It sounds good enough for me. And this Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that all of a sudden he got the affection of his parents and relatives, that they will pass him from lap to lap and cheer him up and entertain him. And this is a delightful activity for the child and for the relatives and the parents. Like we have a new calf here, and it's delightful to go play with the little calf. And everybody just wants to pet the calf because it's so cute. So this cuteness that babies have makes you forget further and further about Haritoshana, about pleasing the Lord, about the vow, about the promise that one makes, that I will not get myself in this situation. I have to be born again. I have to be in another womb for many months, suffering like anything. And then education. That's what Bhaktivinoda talks about. Then education, and I started learning stuff and becoming proud. And my family and the facilities and all that. And now in my old age, he ends in that song, I've forgotten you, Lord. What will be my fate now that I have forgotten you? So this is the plight of a living entity. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a self-realized, fully blissful Vaishnava Acharya. So he was actually putting himself in our shoes. The greatest empathy comes from the Vaishnavas who realize the true suffering of the living entities. So here it is. Pade kene loka Krishna bhakti jani vare se yadi na hila tabe vidyaya ki kare. The purpose of education is to understand Krishna and his devotional service. If one does not do so, then education is false. And ultimately, Tahare se bali dharma karma sadachara, Ishvare se priti janme samata savara. Being cultured, educated, very active, and religious means developing natural love for Krishna. Again, this is my apologies to Yasudev, who's giving class tomorrow. I've stolen some of the portions of the purport that are pertinent to the verse today, but he's a brilliant speaker. He won't have any problem going around and deeper into this subject. So this is, and I was thinking, how is that a little calf just arrived to the farm, is a rescue animal, and he was kind of fearful, but now being fed and petted and pampered in all possible ways, he feels so confident and so happy in this new home. And we, all of those who have exchanges with this calf, after a day, we feel very attached and we feel love for this animal. So how is that after decades of trying to develop love for Krishna, we don't feel anything? We are still putting ourselves before hand. It's like putting the cart before the horse. How come we have not developed love for Krishna after trying for so long? What happened to our sincerity? And we are perseverant, hopefully, that we don't give up, because we have a lot of baggage. We have things that we've been carrying from previous lives, and I'm not talking about a couple, probably millions of lives that we have been trying to avoid facing the inevitable. The inevitable is that we are dependent. Nityo nityanam chetanas chetananam eko bahunam yo vidadhati kama. There are many eternals. We are among them, but there is only one sustaining all the other ones. This is Krishna. We are totally dependent, but we think we are independent. Krishna is the only Swarat, fully independent, and Avigyat, fully cognizant. And we cannot take his place even for a moment. So we can develop love for a calf in moments, but love for Krishna takes a long time because we have an agenda and that we refuse to give up. We have selfish desires. We want to be worshipped. We want to be loved, but we just want to dispense it with a drop counter in any way possible. So only when the heart becomes soft as a feather, as silk, and we feel love for Krishna and his creation, everyone within Krishna's, which is everybody, even those who do us harm, even those so-called enemies, only when we feel love for everyone, we actually will feel also love for Krishna. Okay, so there is a task ahead of us. It's pretty great, and we should continue to practice. We shouldn't dismay and be pessimistic and give up and think, oh, I can't do this, because in that effort is where the reward comes. So I encourage you, brothers and sisters, to continue to chant Hare Krishna and to purify our hearts with all sorts of devotional activities, beginning with worshiping the deities, the holy name, distributing Krishna consciousness, as that is the key to get it in our heart as well. All right, I'll stop here. If there are any questions or comments, you're welcome to offer them right now. And again, I repeat my offer for the Mahabharata. If any of you want to hear the new, unpublished, magnificent, is a work of literary art, read, then we can select a particular evening and read for an hour. So
Hare Krishna.
to let me know. Yes.
Here. I just, since you quoted Chaitanya Bhagavat, I remember the story how Prabhupada was choosing what to translate, whether Chaitanya Charitamrita or Chaitanya Bhagavat. I think it was in Mayapur, and Bhavananda and Tamal Krishna Maharaj were there, and he was asking, so, what shall I translate? Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, Chaitanya Charitamrita. And then Baba was giving the opposite answers to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. They had this Baba between each other. So Bhavananda said, oh no, it was like this opposite. Tamal Krishna Maharaj said Chaitanya Bhagavat over Dasa Thakur, and then Bhavananda said Chaitanya Charitamrita Srila Prabhupada. And then eventually Prabhupada chose Chaitanya Charitamrita, as we know. And I think one of the reasons was that because it gave more philosophy rather than just Leelas pastime. So I think that was the reason why Prabhupada chose Chaitanya Charitamrita, if I remember correctly. But yes, as you mentioned, both unauthorized, and I think even now, His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj, he's compiling the 4 biographies together in one book, which will be, I don't know how it will be called, but it's going to be like complete Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes based on the 4 authorized biographies. And I think it should be coming out soon, like next year or so.
Actually, thank you, bro. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami refers to the Chaitanya Bhagavat, says, I'm not going to elaborate anymore about this particular pastime because, Vrindavan Das Thakur already speaks about that. in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. It's a fantastic book, really. I should read it again. We should all read it over and over. Okay. What is the duty? This is Dasya Prema's question. What is the duty of ISKCON as an educational institution? If it is indeed an educational institution, as I hear, where there are some devotees within ISKCON that are educators, and there are some devotees who are not educators. They are maybe cooks or pujaris or farmers, whatever. So those who are designated by their varna, ashram, tendencies and position, they should educate others about. Because we just the fact that one is a brahmachari or a sannyasi and likes to study doesn't automatically make one a Brahman, because the Brahmins were not very highly placed by Krishna himself. When actually he required something from the Brahmins, and the Brahmins refused, and he had to go to the wives of the Brahmins, and those were the real educators. And so their example is there. So yes, as an educational institute, we should teach people about Haritoshanam, about how to please the Lord. And we can do it in, from the kitchen, from the pujari room, from the barn, from anywhere. But they're actually devotees who are qualified to educate. As there's a via negativa, I guess. I will tell an example of what not to do. When I was in Santiago, Chile, South America, we made devotees from probably the lowest strata of society. As devotees will go into buses and distribute books, and buses were actually not the best medium. I mean, it was useful because more books will be sold, but these weren't readers. These weren't intelligent, part of intelligentsia in Chile. These were miners and plumbers and, really blue collar workers. So we made devotees from that strata of society that were not educated, and they just didn't discriminate very well about what to teach to persons who came. So, but they were very enthusiastic. So when new guests will come to the temple, these new devotees that were made from, the miners, plumbers, kind of strata, they'll jump at the opportunity to preach them, and they will say things as they understood them, and they didn't understand them very well. They didn't get the philosophy very, very, very well, and they thought that the details were the basic teachings. So they just spoke about everything all at once. So it's pretty hard for a newcomer to hear. The first thing you hear about Krishna consciousness is that Lord Brahma has 4 heads and we don't use toilet paper. Where do you go from there? So that's why there are some people that should be designated to educate others, and others should be quiet and listen to more lectures and listen to other people talking, because it's actually the cultivation of knowledge which is higher than the ritual and the devotion. And that's like we hear about the verse 434. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti jnanam jnaninas tattva darshina. One should learn from a self-realized soul, etc., and learn what exactly. And that's in the previous verse, 433. Knowledge, which is higher than ritual. So all these, the different aspects of ritual will make us into gentlemen, but will not ultimately educate us about the goal of life, because it requires intelligence. So, hope I at least partially answered your question, Prabhu. And if there are any other comments. Okay, this is from Lila Kishori. She would
Hare Krishna.
like to, I'm sorry, Taraka Prabhu, I was just saying that Lila Kishori would like to be included if we have Mahabharata reading. And I will, yes, Prabhu.
You can include me as well.
Thank you. I will do that.
Regarding education, Srila Prabhupada, when he established ISKCON, he also established 7 purposes for ISKCON. And the first that he listed pertains to the responsibility of ISKCON to educate. He said, to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large and to educate people in the techniques of spiritual life in order to check the imbalance of values in life and to achieve real unity. And amongst the other 6 purposes, others also touch on the duty to educate. So from the inception of ISKCON, absolutely, it was intended to be an educational institution. And but I very much appreciate your about those who actually have the propensity, or more specifically the
Know-how.
Yes, the specific ability to effectively convey the science of Krishna consciousness to others, that they be engaged in that way, and not just anyone. We experience probably of cringing at some of the sincere efforts of new devotees to try to explain Krishna consciousness to others, lacking the finesse that comes with some period of time of experience, gradually learning what works, what does not work, how to get an idea across without putting someone off, becoming sensitive to their particular set of values, their sensitivities, and understanding what will be meaningful to them and what will not, how to exclude the extraneous, putting people to sleep with too much information or information that they can't relate to. In general, getting ideas across in a way that people will be receptive to information that they can not only accept but maybe even act on. It's a great art and science, and we learn that through practice and experience. And in that connection, I should say that while we are losing the opportunity to hear Mahabharata during Srimad Bhagavatam class, we are gaining the opportunity to hear more from itself, which is valuable to me, at least. I appreciate your classes. Are um, you are bright and have assimilated the philosophy of Krishna consciousness nicely. You are thoughtful about the subject matter and articulate in your presentation of ideas. You organize your thoughts well and present your ideas in class and in a way that is both engaging, entertaining, and easy to assimilate. It's nice to hear. You have significant body of experience in preaching to others, so it's
That's
nice to.
that's too kind of you, Prabhu. I'm just perhaps trying to counteract the fact that some people say devotees don't sleep enough, but we all make up during Bhagavatam class, and so I'm trying to counteract this tendency to, because I'm very puffed up, as we use this common lingo. I'm very proud. I think I'm better than others, etc. Matter of fact, even earlier in my career, as soon as I joined, actually, there were only the Brahmins will give class in the temple where I was in North Brazil, and the classes were literally copies of each other, and they were boring too, and lengthy, unnecessarily lengthy. And I proposed to the temple president, with less than a week in a movement, that I should give classes. I should be put on the roster, because at least I can keep people awake, which is something that they failed at. So I'm just a proud individual, and I appreciate that you see good qualities where they are in there, and I can keep you awake. At least that much I can do. But compared to someone as erudite and well-spoken as yourself, I have not even a shadow. So I always appreciate your addition and your comments, and hopefully actually we'll hear more from you, as I am now being given the responsibility of dispersing the responsibility of giving class. So I would like to include you, at least occasionally, since your physical strength doesn't seem to accompany you, and is somewhat unpredictable, but perhaps we can do a spontaneous trade, and which we can include, because you are like a kamadenu. We expect to milk philosophy and stories from you for a long time to come. I apologize to all of you. I have to drive my wife and myself to some medical appointments in Camp Hill, Mechanicsburg, so I have to leave now. But I will actually make an effort to read the Mahabharata. It's such an interesting look at this fantastic work by Srila Vyasadeva, very refined by His Holiness Hridayananda Das Goswami, who distill the best stories, the most important and pertinent stories from the book for our sake. And he's actually working on the second volume now. The first volume probably will go to print early next year. And I was allowed to obtain it and share it with others. So I expect to hear from me soon. I wish you a very nice Krishna conscious day to all of you, and I'll see you very soon. Hare Krishna.